The first sermon, I told you my story and how important evangelism is, and how it changes our lives, and how salvation should change our life, and it should be something that is memorable to us. But last week we talked about why, the importance of evangelism, and how that we have got a lost and dying world. Jesus said to do it. He told us to do it. He gave us the Great Commission and said, "This is what I want you to do." But then we have people who we have to realize that it's not just because Jesus told us so. There's also the fact that if we don't tell people and we don't evangelize and we don't share the gospel, when people die, they go to hell. If we don't do our job, we could be condemning people to hell because we're not doing what Jesus told us to do. So that's the why. That's why it's important. But then the next question comes is how. And back when I was in seminary, I haven't told a lot of people why I chose Liberty University to go to. But when I was looking at going to seminary, I was checking around at every seminary. I checked Southeastern, I checked Southern, I checked Southwestern, and I checked Union University. And they're all Southern Baptist, and I was really leaning toward Union. And at the time, I was looking at Union. I hadn't even looked at Liberty, and I had pretty much made up my mind that I was going to go to Union. Well, at the same time, my brother was getting ready to start seminary, and he was looking at Liberty. And I was talking to him about Union, and he said, "Oh, that sounds pretty good." He said, "But have you checked out Liberty?" And I said, "Well, I looked at it online." I said, "Their cost was a little high." And he said, "Yeah, but they've got this other price bracket, and you ought to check in on it." So I ended up going to Liberty. He ended up going to Union. It was kind of odd how it happened. But when I started looking at their catalog and started looking at what it took to get my degree, I was surprised that every university, every seminary that I looked at, Liberty University was the only one that evangelism was a required course in every field of study. It didn't matter if you was being a nurse. Evangelism is a required field of study at Union University. And for that, that was one of the deciding factors for me, plus the fact that they gave a military discount, and when you go full time and they did a block study, I was able to do it a little bit cheaper than I could have at Union. And but I'm really, really glad to come to find out that they are ranked number 2 as far as conservative colleges in America. They are the second most conservative. The number 1 was actually a Catholic school up in Connecticut or somewhere was ranked number 1, but they're the most conservative, and they're also the largest Christian university. And so I really enjoyed my time there. But their study was on the course was evangelism, and that was my most enjoyable of all my courses. Now, I enjoyed a lot of my courses. I learned a lot of stuff while taking my classes, but evangelism was my favorite. And they have their evangelism chairman is a guy by the name of Dr. David Wheeler. And I got to meet him while I was at graduation, and just told him how much that his study meant to me. Now, he wasn't my professor, but all of the videos that they did, the lecture videos, he was the one who did them. And he's written 3 of the books that I had to use for my course was written by him. And it was just amazing. You could see it in him when he would do the videos, the passion that he had for evangelism. And as I was studying last night, working on getting my lesson together, I had a hard time finishing it last night because I went to one of the books that he had written, and it was just, I got engrossed in it, and I was trying to just breeze through and pick up some stuff, and I ended up reading 2 chapters, rather than being able to breeze through the whole thing. I got engrossed in it again because it's such a good book, and it's such, it's so, I love to read about evangelism and how to do it. And I went back over a couple of the videos that he had done. But basically that I want to cover tonight is something called servant evangelism. That's how Jesus did it. We can't find a better example. Jesus did not just preach to the masses. He didn't just preach to people. He did some preaching, but that wasn't how his main contact was with people. Now, we hear about a lot of different preachings and sermons that was done in the Bible, but Jesus had a little bit different way of doing things. There's a phrase that I've heard my whole life, and when you do anything in ministry, you hear this a lot. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that boils it down, because I remember visitation used to be. The way that a lot of churches would do visitation is they'd get them some tracts together, they'd get some pamphlets together, and they would go out and they'd cold call on people throughout the neighborhood, and they would go, and it's almost like a bunch of Jehovah's Witnesses. You'd go knock on a door and you'd try to share the gospel with them. That works about that much time. I mean, it's just not effective. It's just people just don't listen to it a lot. They feel like you're a fanatic. They don't really care what you have to say. And most of the time that you will get the door shut in your face. You won't get in the door. You won't get a chance to even share the gospel because people don't want to hear it. If you just go and try to present the gospel to them. But servant evangelism is a combination of simple acts of kindness and interpersonal evangelism. You see, being a servant is what Jesus did. He came and he was a servant, and he taught us about being a servant. And he did good things for people. But doing good things for people is good, but there has to be a motive behind it. I want to do good things and I want to help people. But at the same time, if we just go out there and help people, but we don't share the gospel while we're doing it, then we might as well be part of the Rotary Club or the Ruritan or something like that, or the Kiwanis. They do good things too, but we need to do good things as well as share the gospel. You see, what they have found out, and what many studies have found out, is that sharing the gospel by itself doesn't seem to be that effective. Doing good things by themselves, they make people feel good, but they're not that effective. It has to be, like I said, an intentional, simple acts of kindness. And that is what boils down to being part of the servant evangelism. Then it should become a way of life. And that takes a little bit of effort, and it takes some getting used to it. It takes some work to get into it. And it doesn't come for free. That's the thing about servant evangelism. You can give an hour to going out and knocking on doors and get no result. To be true in servant evangelism and to get into servant evangelism, it's going to take some time. Sometimes it will take some money. Sometimes it will take different things, but the results tend to be there. The results are so much greater, and it becomes a lifestyle. And it should be, the thing is evangelism should become a lifestyle for us. It shouldn't be something we just do, on a Tuesday night or a Thursday night, or just do, at certain times. It should become part of our lifestyle. Now, as far as servanthood, if you go to Mark chapter 10, Jesus spelled it out. And this is when two of the disciples asked Jesus, who's going to be greatest? And Jesus said, but Jesus called them to himself, and he said to them, this is in Mark 10:42, you know that those who are considered rulers over the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. Yet it shall not be so among you. But whoever desires to become great among you shall be your servant. And whoever of you desires to be first shall be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Now, this is what Jesus told the disciples. If you want to be great, now I want to be known as a great evangelist. I want to be known as somebody who has seen lots and lots of people come to know the Lord. I really want that. I want to, not so that people will praise me for it, but I want to see people come to know the Lord. I want to be a great evangelist. Not that I'm out doing revivals all the time, but that's not what an evangelist is. An evangelist is somebody who wins souls. And I want to do that. But in order to become great, in order to be known as great, you need to be a servant. You need to be a slave. And that's what Jesus did. I mean, he demonstrated it to his disciples when he washed their feet. Did you ever think about this? And I had never thought of it this much. But when Jesus washed the disciples' feet, think about this. The Creator of the universe bowed down before the creation to serve them. And yet we sometimes, and I've been as guilty of it as there are certain things I don't like to do. We may think of something as menial or something that is inconvenience, but if Jesus can bow down and wash feet, I'm not too good to do anything. And but when you think about it that way, it's that important. So Jesus gave us an example of servant evangelism, and there's so many. We'll go over others in a little bit. We'll go over other scriptures that portray servant evangelism. Now, we all have a circle, or they had this drawn out as a concentric circles, bigger and bigger and bigger, and in order to reach out, this is about relationships, and it's about forming relationships, and that's what servant evangelism is about. The fact that people, like I said, people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. You've got to form a relationship with somebody before you share the gospel with them. Okay, I know people that they try to share the gospel everywhere they go, and that's all well and good. But to be successful and be consistent at it, it takes the effort of making relationships. Now, being a preacher is not the highest calling, okay? Being a Christian is the highest calling for all of us, and we're all called to be evangelists. It starts, the first part of the circle was yourself, okay? You got to be right in yourself, and you've got to have that relationship with God of yourself. If you don't have yourself together, and I know a lot of people who they just don't have themselves together. And in order to go out and to help people and to lead people and to show people the way, you got to have it together yourself, okay? You got to have yourself in a relationship with God, and a good relationship with God. And when you get that relationship right, then you can start working on other relationships. Now, the next part of that circle, the next bigger circle, that is one of the hardest ones to deal with, okay? That is the hardest one to witness to. That is your family. That includes, your mother, your father, your grandparents, your children, your brothers and sisters, okay? But listen, that is the hardest to witness to, especially when they know where you used to be, okay? That makes it even harder sometimes. But that's where your testimony comes in. And that's where it's important that they see that this is how you used to live, but this is you now. Okay? They need to be able to see that change in your life. And when they see that change in your life, they will be curious about it. And so that's how we best reach our family, is through the change in our life. But you can't browbeat them. That's not going to help. That's not going to help anything. But to be a change in yourself before them. Okay? Then you've got relatives. Okay? You got your close family, but then you got your relatives. That's your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, and those people that you see at family reunions, or you see out, and you contact with them. But you're not the close family with them. Okay, that is your next group, and then your friends. Okay, besides the family, the friends is probably the next hardest to deal with. Okay, when it comes to witnessing, because like the family, they know who you were. Okay, they know that they know what you've been. But there again, and some of us, we've you may never been that bad. Okay, but it's still hard to witness to your friends. But there again, they need to see that you've got yourself, you've got that relationship with God. Listen, if they can't see through your relationship with them, if they should be able to tell that you've got a relationship with God. That needs to be evident. And that's what I said about the inner part of the circle, yourself. You need to have that relationship with God to the point that those people in your other circles can see that you've got that close relationship with God. And your friends will see that has changed. Then you've got your neighbors and your associates. That's people you work with, people that live next to you, people that you see quite often, that you come in contact with, and you know them. Then you've got the acquaintances. These are people that you wave at, the people that you recognize them, you say hi to them in the store, but you're not really friends with them, you're not, but you know each other. That's your acquaintances. And then the last outer circle is person X, okay? That's what they called it, was person X. This is just the person you've not met yet. The person that you do run into out while you're at the store, or the person you run into at different times. These are the different relationships that we have the opportunity to witness to every one of these relationships. Okay? Now, when you go into servant evangelism, there are 5 different levels that they consider part of servant evangelism. The first 3 levels are pretty much things that we do as a group. These are things that we as a church can do together. One of them, level 1, and this is as easy as it gets, but it's really not that effective, but it's something that a lot of churches do. And level 1 is basically very little contact with people, but you give stuff away. I don't know if any of y'all have ever volunteered, but at the fair, the Holston Association, we set up Jacob's Well every year, and they ask for volunteers to go out there and hand out water. They do the same kind of thing at the racetrack. We used to do it when we was at First Baptist. During Jonesboro days, we'd set up a little tent out there, and we'd have coolers of water and little cups, and we'd buy those cups, and we'd give out water, and we'd give out a little tract or something that said Jones First Baptist, and it was really not that effective. It got your name out there. It got people saying, well, that's awful nice of them. But that was about as far as it went. You had very, very little contact with the people. But that's level one servant evangelism. You're doing something for somebody. You're helping them. Now, we had a lot of people not like us because of that. We had a lot of people that appreciated it. They came over and they got their water, but those people that was across the street that was selling lemonade for about $5 a cup, they didn't like the fact that we were giving water away for free. But we did it anyway, and it was just a kind gesture. But and then there's other things like that you can do, but they're considered level one. Very, very little contact. The way that he put it in the video, in his video, is, we don't see a lot of results from it, but it's probably, don't throw it out. Just keep doing it. It may not help that much, but it does get the name out there. Then you've got level two. Now level two, that is something that it's when you go to where people are, okay, as a group. You go to, and we used to do it when it was at Clark Street with the youth from time to time. You go to you would go to like a ball field while they're playing ball, and maybe give out suckers to the kids, or give out drinks to people. But they're not just in passing. It's somebody that you actually, sometimes you have a chance to talk with them, chance to converse with them. You get to tell them who you are, why you're there, things like that. It's still minimal contact, but you get a little more opportunity to interact with them. Okay, they see that you're there for a purpose. You can actually have like a cookout while you're there. You can go and you can have. You can give away burgers or hot dogs or something, and do that while people are there. And they don't really get away from you. Okay, you're not too invasive. You're not pushy, but you're right there. You can have a contact with them, more so than just somebody in passing. Now level 3. This takes a little more time sometimes. This is when we as a group, and this is some of the things that I want to do as a church. You can go out and you can take out a group of people and go out and rake leaves for somebody, or go and one of the ideas that he gave, and this is a great idea. It gets you into their homes, but not invading their homes. You go in groups of 2s or 3s, and you go out and you buy a big box of batteries, and you go out and you ask them, do you have a smoke detector in your house that's been chirping, driving you crazy? Do you have some that maybe you took off the wall because you didn't have a battery, didn't have a stool to get to it? Would you mind, if you've got one like that, would you mind if we come in and change it for you? Okay? Now, you can't go in and change somebody's battery in their smoke detector without telling them about something that could save their life. Okay? That's intentional. You get to get into their house to do a service for them that they've been needing to do. Okay? You're doing the service for them, but while you're there, Jesus saved their life. We're giving them a warning call, just like the smoke detector does. Maybe you've got a light bulb in the house. Maybe they got a light bulb somewhere. Now, LED bulbs have come way down. They're affordable now. I've even got a guy that has offered that he will donate some. Okay, and he gets a perfect opportunity. Maybe you've got a light bulb out and you didn't have a replacement, and you have something that maybe you'd want us to change for you. We've even brought a light bulb with us. We'll come in and change the light bulb, but you can't go in and change somebody's light bulb without sharing about the light of the world. It gives you, that's intentional. Okay, it gives you an opening. It gives you something you can go into. But that's something that we, as a group, it's more involved. You're at their homes. You're at their place. They feel more comfortable because you're there, but you're there to do them a service. Okay, they see that you're there and you care about them. Okay, they see that you care about people in their community, and when they see that, you've become a servant to them. You've become somebody that's helping them. And for that reason, they're going to be more open to listening to what you say. Okay? You have established, now you haven't built it yet, but you have established a relationship with them. While you're there, you can find out, things that are going on in their lives. And it's really good idea to take 2 or 3 people, no more than that, when you go into people's houses. You've got one person, you've heard the jokes about how many, college graduates it takes to change a light bulb or whatever, different groups. You can make all kinds, how many engineers, but it takes at least 2 when you're going out to change light bulbs. That's one to change the light bulb, and one to talk to the person, one to converse with, one to find out what's going on in their life. Find out if there's anything else, that they need done. Now, and this we think about this for widows or people, but disabled people, those especially. But listen, there are families, there are people that just have things going on in their life that they need to share with somebody, and it gets their guard down to the point that they are willing to share things with you. They're willing to tell you what's going on in their life, and you start to build that relationship. You make note of that contact, and you don't let it go. You come back to it a week or 2 later and see how this situation's going, and that's building a relationship. The average person has to listen to the gospel, hear the gospel 7 to 8 times. When you cold call on people, you share it one time. That's it. Okay? But when you go in and you do something for that person, you find out what's going on in their life, and you go back and you make contact again. Listen, you're going to get that 7 or 8 times to share that with them. Now, it's not as quick and easy. It's not as quick and easy and painless as going out one time and knocking on the door. Can I share the gospel with you? Okay, that's easy, that's quick, and that's the end of it. You had no results. This takes some time. This takes some effort. But that's what, listen, it don't take near as much effort as Jesus dying on the cross. But that's what he commanded us to do. We can't make disciples unless we put some effort into it. Level 4. Now level 4 is where you leave the group. Okay? Level 4 is building that relationship with that person one-on-one. This is where you see your neighbor's patio furniture blown over, and you go over and pick it up for them. Okay? That's level 4. That's where you as an individual reach out. That's when you see, and my neighbors, I guess, have shown me this more than I have them, and that's kind of sad, because my neighbor is close to 80, and he does more. Of course, he's retired, and I know that, but I go out, and when we have these big snows, when we've had a big snow, I kind of pride myself on getting out there early and getting my driveway shoveled off. Okay. And a couple years ago, I get out there and if we're calling for 4 to 6 inches of snow, well, when there's 2 inches, I go out and shovel my driveway. and then when there's 2 more, I go shovel my driveway. I'd rather shovel 2 inches 3 times than to shovel 6 inches once. So I go out there and I shovel my driveway. Well, after all the snow has fell, I look out the window, and my neighbors, the husband and wife, they have shoveled their driveway, and now they're across the street at the 2 sisters that live across the street, and they're shoveling their driveway. When it snows, I go over and I try to beat them to the neighbors' driveways to help them out, because I don't want to be shown up by my neighbor who has had a knee and an ankle and 2 hips and an elbow replaced, okay? I don't want to be shown up by him. So now I'm out there. And one thing that I have found out, we have the neighbor that's across the street from me. They moved in about 2 months after we moved into our house. So we've been there 13 years. I have only known her name for the last 2 years. Okay? For 11 years, I didn't even know their name. And it wasn't until her husband died, and nobody in the neighborhood knew it. The people that lived above them saw the hearse pick his body up. Okay? She shared it with nobody. They were very, very quiet. They never said hi. I would see them at the mailbox, and I'd say hi, and then you'd get a grunt. And that was about all you ever got. He was a little more friendly, but she wouldn't even throw her hand up at you for a long time. They had came from New Orleans, and they were just not very friendly. When Pete and Mary that lives beside me, when they found out that her husband had died, they tried to go down there and visit with her and talk with her. She wanted nothing to do with them. But since I shoveled her driveway, I know her name is Martha. I know that I have found out more about her in the past 2 years since I've shoveled her driveway. She has commented on our dog. She's asked about his name, and she's told me stories about her friend's dog that has the same name. We have started to have some conversation. Now, we're still not a good great relationship, but she talks to me. She waves at me when she pulls in, and it started when I went over and helped shovel her driveway. Okay, and that's the kind of things that we can do for our neighbors. That's our level 4 evangelism. Okay, when we start to make contact with people that we haven't previously made contact with. Then level 5 is when we make it more of a walk of life. Okay, this becomes our walk of life. This becomes what we are. As you as an individual. It's when you get to Walmart and it's raining. Okay, and you pop out your umbrella. Instead of going straight in, you find somebody in the parking lot that's waiting in their car for a break because they don't have an umbrella, and you go and walk them in. Okay, that's when you see somebody in line at a convenience store with you, and you just ask them, can I get your stuff too? Or when you go into a convenience store and somebody you can tell has been there all day long, and they have to buy their own food and stuff, and you ask them what they like, and you just go and you put on your cart what they like too, and give it to them. That kind of thing, and that becomes your way of life, and that becomes the kind of things that you do when you're at the gas station and you're pumping gas, and the car pulls up beside you and they're pumping gas, and while you're standing there, you look over and you say, "Hey, you mind if I wash your window for you while you're getting your gas, or you want me to pump your gas for you?" Things like that, and that becomes your way of life, where you can, and that's when you start to intersect with that person X, that those people that are outside of your normal conversation, and those people, but that's become your way of life. and you start to build those relationships, and you start to make relationships. And my mom is one of the best in the world at this, because she talks to everybody, and she can tell you somebody's family history after meeting them for about 15 minutes, and people just share with her. I don't have the same gift that she does in that. So I have to work at it. In order for me to build those kind of relationships, I need to do something to show those people how much I care. And those are some of the things that we do. Some of the other things that we could do as a group to show people. This one church that he talked about, now it was a huge church and it had a great budget. But they did a gas buy down. Right now gas is like, I bought it earlier today at $1.99. Okay, so if everybody's at $1.99, you go to the gas station and you say, for the next 2 hours, we want you to drop your price $25, and we will pay, or 25 cents, and we'll pay for every gallon. We'll pay 25 cents on every gallon that you sell. And you can work out a deal like this with gas stations. And when they do that, you have a group there who, when people come in, and instead of them, you make it a full service gas station for them. You drop the price 25 cents and you make it a full service gas station. People will talk to you when you're paying 25 cents of their gas, and you're pumping it for them, and you're washing their window while they're there, and you're checking their tire pressure while they're there, and you're doing those things for them. You have the opportunity, and you have to give up 2 or 3 hours, a pretty good group of people to do this. But it's a way to build a relationship. We could do that at the Scotchman down here, but it's close to the church. But things like that is something that we could do. Now that would cost us probably for 2 hours. It may cost us $400 or $500 to do something like that. But is it worth it? Okay. Listen, our school systems. I know that Grace down here, they put some money into some of the school systems. That our teachers do not get everything that they need, and they have to. Our daughter is a teacher at Mountain View, and they don't get all the things that they need. And I know that Grace Fellowship, they give her gift cards. They give the teachers gift cards to buy stuff with for their classrooms. She loves for people. And you can't minister to the kids so much, but you can to those teachers. She has had me do it. She's had Christy do it. She's had our daughter do it, other daughter do it. She's had friends do it. But she teaches reading. And she has had other people come in and read for her class. Schedule ahead of time and come in and read for her class. It takes 30 minutes. It takes 30 minutes to volunteer, and you can do it at any school. Any of the teachers would love to have somebody to come in to just give them a little bit of break to read to their students for 30 minutes to an hour, and it gives them a break, but it gives you an opportunity to talk to that teacher. It opens a door with that teacher, but maybe not. Maybe that teacher's not the one that needs it. Maybe it's the teacher down the hall, but they see what you're doing and they see that you're there, and those are some of the things that we can do. So volunteer, cook meals for people. You see somebody that is they come home late and they're not able to they're having to pick up takeout every night, and you see that, and you see your neighbors coming in, make an offer. Hey, we'd like to fix you dinner tomorrow night. We know that you don't have time to have a good home cooked meal. We'd like to fix you something. Throw a roast in the crock pot for them or something. Things like that are things that we can do that opens the door to evangelism, because it don't matter how well you know how to share the gospel if you can't get them to listen to you. And so servant evangelism is the best way to do it. Now Jesus, some of the examples, and we're in John 4, the woman at the well. Jesus, you think, how did he serve her? He served her by the fact that no Jew would have talked to her. Okay? It was a service just that he sat down and talked with her. Okay? He broke a racial barrier right there just by sitting down and talking with her. And she saw how much he cared about her just because he sat down and talked with her. He didn't have to do anything big. He didn't have to do anything great. Just let her see that he wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty, because that was an abominable thing for him to sit down and to take water from her. But yet he showed her that he cared more about her. And then, of course, when he fed the 5,000 and later the 4,000, John chapter 6, verse 4, he said, "Now the Passover, a feast of the Jews, was near. Then Jesus lifted up his eyes, and seeing a great multitude coming toward him, he said to Philip, 'Where shall we buy bread that these may eat?'" And so, Jesus was concerned about those people coming toward him. He knew that they were out in the middle of nowhere. They weren't close to their homes, and they was going to need something to eat. Jesus showed to them that he cared by feeding them. Everywhere he went, he had people following him, needing to be healed, needing his touch. Listen, he told everybody. He told stories about the kingdom of God. He explained to people about salvation. But he met their need. Now, I don't have the ability that Jesus did to tell somebody to go their way and they'll be healed, to get up off their bed and walk. I don't have that ability. But I have the ability to fix something that's wrong in somebody's house. I have the ability to feed somebody. I have the ability to do other things for people that will let them see that I care about them. So tonight, the main thing that we need to see here is that servant evangelism, it takes effort. It takes some work on our part. Jesus gave his time to feed those 5,000 people. He gave his time to sit down and to share with that woman at the well. He took his time to, at each of these, everything we saw him do, he took his time to help those people so that he could explain to them about the kingdom of God. In order to get people to listen, it's going to take us doing more than just quoting them scripture. It's going to take more than us just telling them that Jesus loves them. Okay? It's showing them. So that's what servant evangelism is about. I could do 10 nights on servant evangelism. I really could. And I've gotten I'm going to go home and finish reading that book because I loved it that much. But